Does it taste like a candy bar?
Oh.
That's that's a an honest reaction right there.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Literary Lushes with your host, Samantha.
And Megan.
And today we are joined by Darrin Doyle, and he is going to be reading not one, but two stories for us. The first one is The Search for Boyle, which is a short story. And the second one is an excerpt from his upcoming book. I wrote it down.
Beast in Aisle 34.
I wanted to say The Death in Aisle 34. I think I'm just...
Well, I was actually reading it as you were talking. And so that's why when you started to look over, I'm like, oh, I already got this. Let me jump in and
I guess I'm just hoping for some low-key murder. I don't know. Okay. So welcome, Darrin. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here, and I love your setup. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. So everybody knows why we're getting told a cool story, two cool stories. We're going to make the drink. If you want the recipe, make sure to follow us on Patreon and become a Patreon supporter for other goodies. And so that we're not interrupting, we're just going to go ahead and make it. And then that way you can get the recipe later if you want. And of course, at some point during the story, we will taste the drink and let you all know what we think of it. And our drink is called the Milky Way. And
inspired by the candy bar.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's inspired by the candy bar with the chocolate and stuff.
Mm-hmm. A lot of cream.
Yeah. Lord help me.
So we'll let you know how that goes. But anyways, enough of that. We'll just go ahead and jump right in. So whenever you're ready, Darrin.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This I'm going to read a short piece. It's in the arena of horror. It's called The Search for Boyle, and this is from a collection that came out a couple of years ago. The Search for Boyle. 5 work days and 2 weekends had passed, and none of us had seen Boyle. Hadn't seen him at the plant, hadn't seen him at Curly's, hadn't seen him around town walking his cat. Hadn't seen him, and he wasn't answering his phone. He didn't have a phone, so this wasn't surprising. But he did have a house, and when we knocked on the front door, he didn't answer. Mail was stuffed in the box like it hadn't been touched for a while. From what we'd ascertained in our dealings with him, Boyle had no family in town or nearby. Mickle thought it was a good idea to bust inside and see if he died. Seemed like the right plan, so we kicked in the back door, broke the door jamb, and really distressed the wood on the door itself. We examined the damage and promised if he was alive, we would get it fixed for him. The place seemed empty of Boyle anyway. We called out his name without reply. His stuff was where it always was, or where we assumed it always was. None of us had been in his house before. We didn't know him well. Nobody did. He was a quiet sort, even though he did come out to Curly's every Friday night. But he generally sat and listened and drank his beer and kept half his attention on the TV no matter what was playing. His possessions stood in orderly, expected positions: kitchen table in the kitchen, couch and TV in the living room, coffee maker on the counter. The man lived a very basic existence. The TV, for example, had a 12-inch screen, and aside from the possessions just named, there wasn't much else in the house. The bathroom had a few toiletries on the counter and toilet paper under the sink. One bedroom was totally empty. Dust bunnies dancing across the wooden floor when we made a breeze by walking in. The other room, presumably his bedroom, had a single mattress, no bed frame. The top sheet and blanket were twisted around each other, and the pillowcase had drool stains. A trumpet stood on its bell in the corner. That was the weirdest thing, that trumpet in the corner. We all pictured Boyle up late at night, reclining on his mattress, eyes wet with drink, blowing bluesy licks under a bare yellow bulb. It was such a lonely picture that we shook it away fast. In the fridge were a few condiments and a pack of American cheese. In the freezer, a near empty box of fish sticks.
Ooh.
Maybe he went shopping, Mickle said. Phil said, suppose it would take a week to get what he needed. We laughed. Then we heard the low growling. In the basement was his cat. When we opened the door, the beast bolted through the kitchen and disappeared around the corner. It was probably all crazed and starving. Boyle's cat was no ordinary cat. It was a crossbreed, half domestic and half African serval. It was a long, tall son of a bitch, lean and muscular with jumbo ears, its light brown fur patterned with cloud shaped spots like a tree or a fish. That's why Boyle had to walk it on a leash. The cat wasn't mean or anything, it just kept to itself and wasn't fond of being touched. No way could Boyle let it roam like a regular outdoor cat, and no way could he leave it inside all day. Probably if it didn't release its feral energy, it would eat him, or at least chew him. This idea made us wonder if Boyle had been devoured. Was his body in the basement? Did the hybrid get hungry and overpower him? Where is the animal's food? Someone said. We descended the staircase. The lighting made us feel like we had cataracts. The chilly air smelled like pine boards, soil, urine, and feces. Must and dust hung thick. It was an old fashioned Michigan basement, a single room with ancient wood shelving constructed against stone retaining walls, cobwebs, dirt floors. No Boyle body, mercifully. Two empty metal bowls lay upended, the crusted remnants of old meat clinging to the sides of one of them. In the corner near the furnace was a jumbo plastic tub filled with litter and clumpy excrement. An explosion of litter surrounded the tub.
This is gonna be painting a beautiful word picture. Darrin.
Thank you.
No, this.
I'm an expert in litter boxes. Kitty definitely sprayed down here, Bert said, squeezing his nose like he wanted to tear it off. Hey, look at that. Mickle was pointing to one of the shelves. We saw what he saw, a camera, not a super new model, but new enough to be digital. Why would he keep a camera in the basement? Maybe he left it. Maybe he left it by accident. We may need Sheriff Cole. Yeah, this is Boyle's property. We busted into his house, I said. That point is moot. We took the camera upstairs and sat at the kitchen table. Mickle poked around in the cupboards while we tried to decide what to do. Apparently Boyle's not a complete loser, Mickle said after a minute. He had found a near full fifth of Canadian whiskey. We passed around the bottle. Outside the window, night was in full bloom. Although nobody said it aloud, we felt like we were steeling ourselves against some big, dark revelation. Nobody wanted to look at the pictures, but at the same time, we knew we would. Let's talk this through, Bert said. His keys and wallet ain't here, Mickle said. No sign of forced entry, except ours. Hang on, where's his car? In the shop, Phil said. I was down there today to get mine serviced. It's still there. So he didn't take a trip, unless someone else drove him. You have any friends? Just us. Maybe a secret girlfriend. You ever seen Boyle? You should talk. We drank for a while, the camera poised in the center of the table like a forbidden relic out of a fairy tale, the object that should never be touched, the door that shouldn't be opened. None of us wanted to make a move, because if that camera held something terrible, it would feel like whoever looked first was the one to let it into the world. Bert startled in his chair. Whoa, he scared me, buddy. The cat was perched on the counter behind Mickle's head, staring at us. Should we go buy some cat food? Maybe Kitty wants whiskey. Phil brought out a bowl, poured a bit of the sauce into it, and set it on the counter. Wasteful. Hang on, maybe not. Sure enough, the hybrid was licking away at the hooch. I'll be damned. Someone ought to take a picture of that. We all had phones with cameras, but the mention of photography brought us back to the dilemma at hand. What are we waiting for? Mickle said. He grabbed the camera and turned it on. It beeped. We all gathered around to stare at the little display screen. The first photo was of Boyle himself, sitting on his mattress with the trumpet pressed against his lips, pretty much exactly how we had imagined him. I could almost hear the sad wail of that horn calling for the angels. He had a look in his eyes like a man about to go into major surgery or jump off a cliff. Who do you suppose took this picture? Bert asked. That could be a clue. But the second photo was a bigger surprise. It was a close-up of me in Boyle's basement, my eyes squinted in a quizzical fashion, stooped and staring into the lens. Where'd that cat go? Mickle asked. The third photo was Bert taking a sip from a bottle of Canadian whiskey. The fourth was Phil peering into a cupboard, wearing a wry smile, gripping a bowl. The fifth was Mickle reaching toward the camera, mouth open like he was caught mid-statement, like he was just about to turn the thing on. "We're all seeing this, right?" Phil asked. Nobody answered out loud. We were holding our breaths and our thoughts as tight as possible because the rest of the world felt like it was slipping away. The sixth picture was of the cat, its face buried in a pile of raw pink meat. There weren't any more pictures. "Where is that cat?" "I don't know. Where's Mickle?" We looked around. We didn't remember him leaving. Did Phil go look for him? Not that I recall.
Oh, no.
Bert, Bert, you still here? Guys? I didn't remember going down to the basement, but that's where I found myself. Had I come down here to look for my friends? Why hadn't I turned on a light? I stood in the cold blackness, breathing the soil and the urine and something else, something rich and metallic. I called out for my friends. Wherever they weren't with me. Neither was Boyle, nor anybody else. It was me, the darkness, and the chewing, just the wet, hungry insistence, teeth on flesh, and the hot, wild stink of that goddamn cat.
Oh no.
That's all.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I'm scared to touch my cameras.
Just I can like
They're gonna be
smell.
shaking.
Yeah. Okay. Now that we're talking about like flesh and blood, let's shake a creamy drink. Please hold.
Yeah. Shake away.
Okay. Woo! I'm like sweating from that.
I know.
It's like making me
The
nervous.
smell.
Yeah.
I'm already like,
Ooh, God.
okay.
And how creepy, like, I don't know. I think about like 2 or 3 pictures in and be like, nope, I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, I get it. I like horror that's kind of indefinite as far as what exactly is happening, you know what I mean? That gives you an eerie feeling rather than necessarily explaining everything.
Right, because the not knowing is the scary part.
Like I have like 8 different theories going on in my head right now. Like,
Yeah, same.
That's good.
No, thank you.
I need a stir knife.
Oh yeah, get that stirring knife.
Let me know when I should start my second little piece.
We'll take a sip.
Let's try it. I'm excited, but also really
Oh, I'm
nervous.
gonna dump this in.
It doesn't smell like anything.
That's great.
Doesn't smell like the metallic smell of blood, Darren.
Darn it.
It smells like chocolate milk to me, or like the coffee creamer.
That makes
it is cream.
I know. There we go.
Yeah.
cream and chocolate. Drum roll. How is it?
It's not the worst.
That's
You know what it is? It's like sometimes things when they're artificially flavored taste super artificial. I think the chocolate vodka just tastes
We have extras in case we wanted to try a sip of that. I did save us.
because that maybe it would be better if you put the cream with like chocolate syrup and just regular vodka. That might have been.
yeah. Those flavored drinks can have that kind of odd,
Yeah,
manufactured taste. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I think that's what's throwing me off.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's not bad. It's just.
Is it like a candy bar? Does it taste like a candy bar?
Oh.
That's an honest reaction right there.
Yeah, that just tastes like rubbing alcohol there. That's
Was
what it is.
Was that straight chocolate vodka?
Yeah.
It was just a tiny sip. Like
Yeah.
my tongue is numb.
Oh my god.
If she passes out, it was the cat.
Okay. Right. Blame the cat. Yeah, that's what I do.
I'm using the martini as a chaser.
There you go. Well, Darren, we're ready for
The second one.
to read an excerpt from your next book, and you said it. By the time this airs, it'll already be mid-October, so the book will be out already at this point in time when this airs.
That's correct. Yeah, it's like 10 days, I think, officially till it drops. So, Yeah.
October is like 10 days
I
away.
think
I know. That story made me like sweat. I was like
Oh,
nervous.
wow. Well, that's good, I think.
compliment, I think, right?
Just because we put ourselves in the characters. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh my God, first off, no, just no. I say cat, I'm like, bye.
And I know you love basements, so
Yeah, I met
Oh,
somebody
wow.
who had a cat like that, and it was very interesting. It was this big, larger than a normal cat. Did not like to be touched. I tried to pet it, and the girl was like, "Don't do that." So I think that got in my head. Just wanted to include it in a piece.
it's a good visual. I pictured more of like a giant like feline,
I was
like panther or something. As
I was
opposed
mentioning
to-
like was it a lynx?
Yeah,
yeah.
you should look them up. They kind of look like a lynx a little bit, but smaller. But well, cool. I'm gonna read this opening from The Beast in Aisle 34.
That. Ooh,
That's
Very
that's
covered.
a dope cover.
Yeah, yeah.
inducing.
Thank you.
Nightmare inducing. There's the words I tried.
Nightmare inducing. Now, Darren, is this like a bunch of short stories as well? There's
No,
yours?
this is a novel.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, this is a novel, and it's fairly self-explanatory, hopefully in the first chapter, but it's basically about a guy who works at a big box home improvement store, and he's a werewolf. So,
I'm sold.
I'm ready for
Yeah.
this.
and he lives in rural Michigan. So, yeah, everything should be fairly clear in the opening couple pages. This is chapter 1. The werewolf squatted on the roof beneath the quieting sky. A fast-moving storm had passed through, gleaming the trees. Overhead, through clouds, winked an absolute moon. Between the werewolf's lips glinted knife-sharp eye teeth. He examined his hand, which resembled a raccoon's paw, the size of a skillet. His claws, like arrow tips, could pierce a buck's flank, pluck the heart from its chest, and pop it like a water balloon. How he loved to erupt their organs above his face and let the hot blood cascade. His mouth grew moist with the thought.
And then all I'm thinking now is Game of Thrones Khaleesi when she's eating the horse heart also. So it's a very weird
You're
dichotomy
interrupting.
going. I'm sorry.
That's all right. His wife was out of town, as she always was during the full moon. The werewolf, whose name was Sandy Kurtz, had come up with the brilliant idea of enrolling Pat in continuing education at the community college in Cadillac. Sandy had checked the schedule and learned that Night Skies Astronomy met Thursday evenings for 8 weeks. It sucked that it had to be in Cadillac. He made sure to say this to Pat, but he was willing to make the sacrifice. This class would get Sandy through October until the next cycle, when he would have to come up with a new excuse to separate him from his wife so he wouldn't be in danger of revealing his secret, or worse, eating her. A fly landed on one of the werewolf's wide, pointed ears. Covering his body was a layer of hair as coarse as hay and 2 shades darker than the dead leaves carpeting the lawn. He rose onto 2 legs and sniffed the breeze, letting his tail wag, shaking bits of asphalt shingle from the clumped hair on his rear end. The moon, fat and brilliant, slid from behind a cloud. Adrenaline laced through him. He erupted into a spasm of howls and then, snarling, launched from the roof. He scampered across the lawn into the awaiting clump of trees. The Kurtz's ranch-style home stood on West Sparling Road, miles from the nearest 2-lane highway in Grand Traverse County, Michigan. Dozens of acres of wooded land, state-owned, stretched behind it. For a werewolf, the location was a fucking bonanza, and Sandy hadn't even chosen to live here. Deer were so plentiful that Sandy was sure he would never have to kill a human. He probably wouldn't even be seen. Nobody entered these woods except hunters in season, and they never stayed after nightfall. As far as Sandy knew, there were no plans to develop the acreage. Hikers rarely entered because the terrain was tough, densely treed. The numerous ponds and creeks created a swampy feel, the air teeming with mosquitoes. The nearest neighbors were the Olsons, a mile away. That Olson farm, Sandy admitted, was a temptation with its hen house and 20 head of cattle, but in 6 months of lycanthropy, Sandy hadn't needed to wander near it yet. Whenever he envisioned pouncing upon one of those big, juicy cows, he pictured being frozen in a spotlight by Farmer Olson, then catapulting through the air and decapitating the elderly man with a swat of a claw before feasting on his brains. Although repugnant while in human form, at moments like this, during a change, thoughts of Farmer Olson's soft, flavorful head meat nearly doubled him over with desire. He battled to restrain the compulsion. Envisioning Pat's look, betrayal, disgust, helped with the struggle. He would never be able to live with himself. The werewolf sniffed a doe on the wind, intense, maybe 60 yards off. He sidled beside a tree and lowered his body to the forest floor. He had wandered into a thicket of pines, shrouded from both moon and the whisper of wind. The blanket of needles beneath his paws felt spongy. This meant fewer branches for the doe to step on. He wouldn't hear her, no matter how heavy her musk grew in his nose. He remained crouched for 5 agonizing minutes. Then, turning his head, he spotted movement. Trees shadowed her. She wasn't even a doe, not yet, still a fawn, though on the cusp of womanhood. With a bowed head, she picked daintily at the scrub, unaware of his presence. It would have been simple to spring forth, claws and teeth a brilliant flash, striking before she even knew what was happening. She was undoubtedly quick, but would be no match for his speed. Experience told him it would be over in seconds. His maw overflowing with blood, the salty fist of meat still thumping as it descended his esophagus like Santa down a chimney. But tonight he wanted to savor the hunt. Soundlessly he crawled. He was in the moment now, allowing his desire to simmer like water on a stove, simply studying her as she nibbled along the ground in search of sustenance. She knew nothing of her impending death. He envied her innocence, her peace. We all had to die sometime. We could only hope to go in a blink, feeling just a glimmer of fear before the curtain closed. Pleasure coiled inside him, a tickle that hastened his breath and loosed saliva from his mouth. At that exact moment, a shrill cry, not unlike the one the werewolf had unleashed when he vaulted from the roof, echoed through the night. The doe bolted, crashing through the undergrowth before the werewolf could pounce. A rank, soggy odor assaulted his nose. Humans, 3 of them. Judging by the texture of their funk, these were overweight men who hadn't showered in a week. Not a trace of deodorant. If in his current form he could have spoken, he would have growled the words, but instead he could only think them with a pitch of pure disdain. Squatch cops. All right. That's the excerpt. So these are like Sasquatch hunters who now are going into his woods to to search for the Bigfoot. Yeah, that's right. So they kind of mess up Sandy's plans, and yeah, further complications arise.
I mean, you describe things, the smells. Like when you were describing the smell of those hunters, I'm like, I know people who smell exactly like that. Yeah.
I'm just imagining being in theme parks with people who don't.
We play a lot of nerdy games, so I just imagine some of my dear nerd friends who don't go outside very often.
Yeah, it's got some. This has got Sasquatch hunters and LARPers, you know, and there's a lycanthrope, a werewolf support group as well. So
Oh,
got a lot of things in this book. I'm pretty happy with it. It's
excited.
I'm just loving the descriptiveness. Like I'm not kidding. Like between I could just see it, smell it, sometimes taste it. You know, like just
For better or worse. The head meat really got me.
What did?
The head meat.
Oh, yeah. There's only so many ways you can describe, you know, body parts, so you got to kind of make them a little different, you know. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, when something is doesn't exist in real life, like a werewolf, I think it's really important that you make it extremely tactile and sensory, so you can really picture it and make it believable.
it was
I mean, both stories were very visceral. It's like, whew.
Thank you.
Know. Yeah.
I hope I didn't gross you out too much.
No,
we,
no.
We like that stuff, but also there is that inherent suspense in both of
Yes.
them.
I'm like, all right, what's gonna be next?
Yeah, right. We're
Thank
gonna have to. We might just have to have Darrin back to do like the book
We'll
Huh?
read the book
We'll read the
ourselves,
book
so
and
you don't have to like read the whole thing to us.
and bring
but-
him back. And we'll,
Yes,
yeah,
discuss
because that's. I mean, I love
Love it.
werewolves. So
Thank you. Yeah, it's as much it's as equal comedy as it is horror. So I don't know if you could get that from the opening, but
Yeah, I think I chuckled.
yeah.
I mean, and I think that
I feel
is
for his
necessary sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, that's why he sends her away.
But I know, but it's only the opening. I mean, there's a lot that can happen later.
That's true.
We'll just have
Like
to read
maybe
the
she
book
wants to
find out.
surprise him on his trip or something, and then shows up, and
Exactly.
there's so much that can happen. After it, no,
I know,
like,
me
need to
too.
know.
No,
Need to
I
know.
want to know what happens to these squatch hunters.
Well, I hope they either die or with deodorant on.
Maybe
The question is, will they smell better once they're dead?
maybe Sandy kills them with a stick of deodorant.
I wish it was legal to have like that spray deodorant, and like if someone like doesn't wear it, you just be like,
Do yourself a favor.
My name's Darrin Doyle, DarrinDoyle. Make sure you spell it right. My website is darrindoyle.com, and I've made it all new and snazzy. You can check that out. There's links to getting my books there. I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram as well. So you can find me at either of those places. Just type in my name. And my new book, The Beast in Aisle 34, is out now.
yay!
Run, don't walk. Yeah.
Run, don't walk, but be safe. Don't
Be
don't trip
safe.
and fall.
That's right. Stop at the crosswalks and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
And with that, we say, stay lively with your libations.
Well, that was a good one. I'm so creamy.
Oh, I forgot how cream. I took a big swig that
Oh,
time.
that's-
I've been sipping it, and that was
Oh.
a big one. And that hit the back of the throat. Roll up.
Now you don't have to eat lunch,
Yeah, there we go. Just
What's lunch?
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out our Patreon page for more exclusive content or just to support your favorite Lushes. Levels start at just a few dollars a month and you get some awesome goodies when you sign up.